So here we are at Ice Pond. Ice Pond, as you can see at this point, July 20th, 2013, is thickly covered with duckweed, almost smothered with duckweed. It makes it a rather difficult habitat for a lot of creatures. However, we got some very happy green frogs that were leaping into the water as we approached. They gave a little yelp, kind of like a little squeaky toy sound, and jumped across the pond several steps and disappeared under the duckweed. It's a healthy pond, although the duckweed is deeper and thicker than we would want it to be, probably from too much fertilization in the water that drains into the ice pond right now. Ice pond is a technically vernal pond because it does dry up. Some years it dries up completely, but usually most years there's some water remaining in it. But any pond that dries up completely at some point on a regular basis is called a vernal pond. So it's been a very hot and steamy July in 2013 with heat indexes of over 105, sometimes 110 here in Irvington. So you can imagine that not only are the people, hiding in their living rooms with air conditioning on, but the animals too are seeking shelter. The vernal wetlands here in Irvington Woods have dried up for the most part, and here down at Marshall's Pond, a lot of the animals have dug down into the deep in the cracks of the rock walls and into the muddy areas to just stay cool and quiet until the temperatures come up a little bit and some rain falls. We've had a dry spell now too, so things are a little less fresh than we'd like it to be. So hopefully we're going to see some turtles, but they may be hiding under the mud right now. There's a little scud. That's the bottom of the food chain for the carnivores. The boatman might even eat him. In this strainer, you have an example of the bottom of the food chain for the carnivores. Are these little beetles and little macroinvertebrates that eat algae and bacteria and form a perfect protein for the larger creatures like the salamander nymphs and the tadpoles and the dragonflies and the dragonfly larvae. They'll all come and eat these guys and then take that energy back out into the woods when they leave the pond. It's an amazing thing how all of the energy on the planet starts with green plants, but it moves out. It moves out through the animals into various habitats wherever the animals move to. We've got quite a collection of boatmen there. Water boatmen with the long oars for their legs, which they use very effectively to propel themselves down to the bottom. They carry an air bubble with them for breathing, because they do breathe oxygen like everything. Now in the spring, dipping in the same pond, Marshall's Pond, I could get like 3 different kinds of tadpoles in very diverse sizes, as well as the boatmen and beetles and springtails and scuds. It's really a marvelous thing to come here, just sit down on the rock wall and stare. And eventually your eyes adjust to nature and to the shapes and movements of nature, and you begin to realize that the pond is full of life and that it's all there doing its thing. Whether you were there or not, the show is going on. And the green frogs, the bullfrogs, in the spring we have the wood frogs coming here and the peepers, and they all come in succession at their own particular moment and do their breeding and use this pond as a starting point for their year. We're down on the boardwalk. This is the bottom of the Hermit's Wetland. And if you were here back in March or April, it was an entirely different scene going on. All of these grasses were short and just emerging. There were some dried grasses still sticking up, but these big green ones poking through the bridge now were not here at all. And instead, you had lots of water. Right now, there you can look down here and see the sedges and the dirt and the mud out of which they're emerging. But in the spring, in March and April, there was water there, a couple of inches at least of water, and in that water there was a lot going on. If you stood here back then, you heard choruses of peepers, green tree frogs, wood frogs, and maybe even the bullfrogs, doing their breeding and depositing their eggs, and then the adults would just disappear back into the woods, and those eggs emerged as tadpoles. Those tadpoles have to develop very quickly in these vernal wetlands because, as you can see, within 8 weeks or 10 weeks, the water's gone, and if they haven't developed into the adults enough to be able to survive on land, they just become food for the birds and the other animals of the wetlands. And you could spend the whole night here and just hear these frogs going crazy. We encourage everyone to come down to the wetlands after the first warm rain in March, and you'll really have a treat just sitting here on the boardwalk built by the Girl Scouts. Thank you very much. And you can enjoy getting to know the voices of our amphibians.